You ever have a night where you wish time would stop? Not because it's perfect, but because something is creeping in and you know that once it crosses a line, there's no going back? That was the night for me. It started normal enough. Just a Friday night. I had the place to myself. My ex-wife was long out of the picture, and my son, Matthew, now in college, still came home on weekends with his best friend, Aiden. They were like brothers, always had been since high school. He called our house his second home. That weekend, they were crashing at my place again. Matthew said they had a huge group project and were using the spare room as their war room. I didn't ask questions. I trusted them. I wish I had asked questions. I had dinner alone that night. Steak, a glass of red, some old blues playing in the background. My back was acting up again. It always did when the seasons change. So after cleaning up the dishes, I took a hot shower and crashed in bed with a heating pad. I was out like a light by 10. But then, around 1:30 a.m., I stirred. Not because of a dream, because of a sound. A soft creak. The unmistakable sound of my bedroom door easing open. I rubbed my eyes, blinking into the dark. At first, I thought it was Matthew. Maybe something was wrong. But it wasn't him. It was Aiden. He stood in the doorway, a silhouette lit by the hall nightlight. Tall, lean, wearing only a tank top and joggers. I sat up confused. "Aiden?" I asked, voice thick with sleep. He didn't say anything, just stepped inside and slowly closed the door behind him. Then I heard the soft click of the lock. "What are you doing?" I asked, heart rate kicking up. His face looked pale, tense. His eyes were wide, like someone at the edge of a cliff. I couldn't sleep," he said quietly. This wasn't like him. Aiden was a sweet, respectful type, the kind who said sir too often and always offered to help carry groceries. He'd been a fixture in our lives since high school, the quiet one who stuck around even after my divorce, even when Matt went to college. But something about him tonight was different. He looked older, not just in body, but in the way he was standing, the way his gaze wouldn't leave mine, like he'd made a decision and didn't know how to walk it back. "You okay?" I asked, more cautious this time. He walked over and sat on the edge of the bed, close, but not touching. "I needed to talk to someone," he whispered. I pulled the blanket up, suddenly aware of my shirtless chest under the covers. At 1:30 a.m., he gave a tiny smile. "It's not like I planned this." There was a beat of silence, just breathing. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Mr. Holloway, have you ever fallen for someone you weren't supposed to?" The way he said it, it wasn't casual. It wasn't theoretical. It was personal and loaded. I swallowed hard. "That's a complicated question." He turned to me, eyes locked in. "So that's a yes?" "Aiden, what's going on?" He looked down at his hands. "They say it's wrong, you know, that some people aren't meant to love each other. But what if you don't get to choose? What if it just happens?" I stayed quiet, because I knew what he was trying to say. Let me be honest. This wasn't the first time I'd noticed the way Aiden looked at me when he thought I wasn't watching. The long glances, the too long silences when we'd bump into each other in the kitchen, the way he always volunteered to stay late and help out, even when Matthew had already left. And if I'm being honest with myself, there were moments when I looked back, but I never let myself feel it. Until now. Aiden looked up again. "I know this is wrong. I know I'm just your son's friend, but I needed to say it." "Say what?" He hesitated, then said it. "I think I'm falling for you." There it was, the words between us now. Heavy, real. I sat there, pulse hammering in my neck, unsure what the right thing to say even was. "You don't know what you're feeling," I finally said. "I do. You're young." "I'm not a kid," he snapped, suddenly sharper than before. "I'm 22. I've seen things. I've dated people. I know the difference between a crush and this." I sighed, rubbing my forehead. "I'm your best friend's dad. And that's the only reason I haven't kissed you yet." Now pause, because before I tell you what happened next, I need to say this. If you're not part of the gay community, if this story makes you uncomfortable, or if you're just here out of curiosity and not respect, this channel might not be for you. We share real, raw, emotional stories from our community. The kind of stories people like us often keep buried. But if you're one of us, if you believe in complicated love, healing through pain, and loving who you're not supposed to, then you're exactly who this was meant for. Hit subscribe, because when we hit 1,000 subscribers, there's a surprise waiting just for our real supporters. Also, like, share, and drop a comment if you've ever been caught between right and real. Now back to that night. I stood up and walked to a window, needing air. The coolness of the glass grounded me. I can't be what you want, I said quietly. I didn't ask you to be anything. You're Matthew's friend. And I still am. Nothing changes that. Aiden, I didn't come here expecting anything. I just needed you to know. I needed to say it or it was going to eat me alive. He stood up too, but he didn't come closer. He just looked at me, raw, open, heartbreak already brimming in his eyes. And in that moment, I saw myself, not as his son's father, not as some older man responsible for drawing the line, but as someone who was also afraid to admit he'd been seen. I should go, Aiden whispered. He walked toward the door. Fingers hesitated on the lock. Then he looked back and said, "But if you ever feel it too, even just a little, I'll still be around." And then he left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood there in the dark, heart racing, alone. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know who I was anymore. To be continued in part 2. In the next chapter, I try to ignore what happened, but the more I push Aiden away, the more my mind drifts to the truth I've been denying, and it's about to cost me everything. The next morning, I woke up hoping it had been a dream, that maybe Aiden hadn't stood in my room last night, hadn't told me he was falling for me, hadn't looked at me with those eyes that knew things I wasn't ready to say. But the moment I stepped into the kitchen and saw him there, hair still messy from sleep, quietly buttering toast, I knew it had been very, very real. He didn't look up when I walked in, didn't speak, just kept his head down and kept moving like nothing happened. I wanted to say something. Instead, I poured my coffee and sat at the table beside him. Matthew came down a few minutes later, yawning and stretching like a bear just out of hibernation. "Morning, guys," he said, moving straight for fridge. Aiden smiled. "Morning." I gave a quiet nod. "Yeah, morning." It was all painfully normal. Too normal. And I hated how good Aiden was at pretending nothing had happened. Because I couldn't pretend. Not really. My chest felt like it was carrying bricks. After breakfast, they both packed up and headed to campus for their group project. Before he walked out, Aiden turned back for the briefest moment, eyes meeting mine from the hallway. No words, just a look. Then he was gone. The silence after they left was suffocating. I tried to distract myself, cleaning, working through emails, walking the dog, but it didn't help. All I could think about was his voice. If you ever feel it too, even just a little, that whisper wouldn't stop looping in my head. I didn't see him for a few weeks after that. Matthew came home once or twice, but Aiden didn't come with him, and something about that felt worse. I told myself I was just being paranoid, that maybe Aiden realized he'd crossed a line. That space was good, but I hated how much I missed his presence. The way he always noticed if I looked tired. The way he'd help clean the kitchen even if no one asked. The way he listened. Like you were the only voice in a noisy world. I didn't want to miss him, but I did. One Sunday morning, I went to grab coffee at the cafe near campus. And there he was, sitting alone at the corner table, sketching in a journal, earbuds in. He hadn't seen me yet. I could have walked out, but I didn't. I walked up, hesitated, then tapped his shoulder. His eyes lifted slowly. There was surprise, and then something else. Like he wasn't sure if I was going to scold him or ignore him. "Hey," I said. "Hey," he replied. He took out one earbud. "What are you doing here?" "Coffee." "What about you?" "Sketching." There was a long pause. Then I motioned to the seat across from him. "May I?" He nodded. I sat. We didn't talk right away. I watched as he drew, soft pencil lines outlining something that looked like a house in a forest. Your mind seems quieter than mine, I finally said. He smiled faintly. I don't think so. I just have better walls. We sat for over an hour, talking about random things. His art, my work, life after college, the way autumn was coming in faster this year. We didn't talk about that night. Not until I stood up to leave. He closed his journal, then said, "Do you regret it?" I froze. I don't know. He nodded slowly. I don't either. I should have walked away. But something kept me still. Aiden, he looked up. I can't be what you want. He exhaled quietly. I didn't come here wanting anything. I just missed you. My chest ached. Me too. For the next few weeks, we kept bumping into each other more often. Or maybe we weren't bumping. Maybe we were slowly orbiting closer again. I started seeing him differently, not just as Matthew's friend, but as Aiden, as someone kind, thoughtful, growing into his own strength. And whether I liked it or not, part of me had started to hope. Then one Friday night, Matthew was over for dinner. Aiden wasn't with him. "Where's your shadow?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Matthew laughed. "Oh, he's working late. Some commission piece. Said he needed space anyway." Space. Matthew shrugged. "Yeah, I don't know. He's been weird lately. Moody." I tried not to let my expression change. Later that night, while Matthew was asleep in his old room, my phone buzzed. "Aiden, can I come over?" My fingers hovered over the screen. Every part of me knew what this meant. And still, I typed back, "Me." Doors open. 20 minutes later, I heard the knock. He stood there in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, looking uncertain but determined. I stepped aside. He came in. We sat on the couch in silence for a while. Then he turned to me and said, "I tried to forget about that night. I know. I tried to bury it. Pretend it was just one of those late-night impulse moments. And I failed." He looked at me, straight through me, and then, in a voice so soft it nearly broke, "Why won't you just admit you feel it too?" My throat tightened, because I did. God, I did. But I didn't know how to say it, because saying it meant owning it. And owning it meant everything would change. My relationship with my son, my identity, my future. But not saying it, that was tearing me up just the same. I looked him in the eyes. "I'm scared." He nodded. "So am I." And then he reached out, not to touch me, just to place his hand beside mine, close enough to feel the warmth, but still waiting for permission. I didn't move, but I didn't pull away either. And we sat there, two people too scared to fall, and too drawn to stop, to be continued in part 3. In the next part, a decision is made, one that could ruin everything or lead to something neither of us dared imagine. There's a sound that comes with silence, a hum, a vibration in the air that you only hear when a room is full of things left unsaid. That's what our living room felt like. Me, sitting with Aiden. Him, staring at our hands, his palms so close to mine it made my skin burn. Neither of us moved. Not yet. Not until I did something I hadn't planned on doing. I turned my hand and touched his fingers. Just barely, but enough. His breath caught, like he wasn't expecting me to do it, like the door he'd left cracked open that night. The one I hadn't dared step through had suddenly swung wide. "I don't know what this is," I said, voice low. He looked up. "I do." I shook my head. "You think you do, but this could hurt people. It could ruin everything." "It doesn't have to," he whispered. "We don't have to define it. Not yet." His voice was soft, but the certainty in it rattled me, because it reminded me of something I had buried for years. The part of me I'd silenced when I got married, when I became a father, when I chose normal over truth. And now, here was Aiden, 22, bold, honest, and he was giving me a choice I never thought I'd get again. To feel, to want, to be seen. We didn't kiss that night. We didn't even touch more than hands. But that moment changed everything, because it meant we'd stop pretending. We couldn't go back to just family friend status after that. And I think we both knew it. The next morning, he left before Matthew woke up. He texted later that afternoon. Aiden, I won't push. Just wanted you to know, whatever this is, I'm not afraid of it. I stared at the message for a long time. I didn't reply, because I didn't know what to say. Matthew came by the next weekend alone. No, Aiden. You guys okay? I asked as casually as I could. Yeah, Matthew said, distracted by his phone. He's just been quiet. Said he's working through some stuff. I didn't ask. I wanted to ask. I didn't. That night, I dreamed of that first night Aiden came into my room. But in the dream, he never left. He sat beside me, waited, and I reached for him. But every time our hands touched, he disappeared. I woke up sweating. Alone. A week later, I finally caved. I texted him. Me, can we talk? He replied instantly. Aiden, I'll be there in 20. He arrived with 2 coffees. One black, one with oat milk, the way I liked it. He still remembered. We sat on the back porch this time. Cool air, quiet street, stars just starting to show. I've been thinking, I said. He nodded. So have I. I don't want to hurt anyone, least of all Matthew. I would never do anything to hurt him either. But if he finds out, he'll hate us. Aiden finished for me. At first. Maybe longer. We both went silent. Then he said something that stopped my heart. Would it be worth it? I looked at him and said nothing, because that was the question, wasn't it? Was a love that was quiet and complicated and off-limits still worth it? If it was real, I asked him, why me? He blinked. Out of everyone, why fall for someone twice your age? Someone with baggage? Someone who probably shouldn't want this. Aiden's voice was steady. Because you see me. Because you listen. Because you make me feel like I matter, not just for how I look or what I do, but for who I am. And because deep down I think you feel it too, even if you hate yourself for it. I didn't answer, because I couldn't deny it anymore. That night, we crossed a line. It wasn't rushed. It wasn't reckless. It was quiet, careful, emotional. 2 people who had tried not to feel something for too long, finally letting themselves feel it. And when he leaned in, when our lips touched, it wasn't like some dramatic movie scene. It was soft, and it felt like truth. Afterward, we lay on the couch, fully clothed, his head resting on my chest. We didn't speak. We didn't need to. But as I ran my fingers through his hair, I knew something had changed inside me, and there was no turning back. But love isn't lived in moments. It's tested in the days after. And the real test came faster than I expected. A few days later, Matthew showed up unexpectedly, a surprise visit after a canceled exam. He walked into the house like he always did, carefree, talking about a professor's weird obsession with frogs and how he and Aiden were planning a spring break trip. And then he asked, "Is Aiden here?" I froze. "No," I said, "not right now." He nodded. "Cool." I wanted to ask if he still had my charger. Then, casually, Matthew reached for the remote on the coffee table and knocked over a sketch pad Aiden had left behind. It opened on a page, and Matthew saw it, a sketch of me, sleeping, the blanket half falling off my shoulder, details sharp, intimate, clearly drawn from memory or from someone watching closely. Matthew picked it up, stared, then slowly turned to me. And for the first time in years, I saw a look on his face I hadn't seen since he was a kid. Hurt, but not just hurt. Betrayal. Dad. I couldn't speak. He held up the sketch pad like it was a weapon. What the hell is this? To be continued in part 4. In the next chapter, secrets explode, emotions spiral, and I'm forced to face the one person I never wanted to hurt. My son. Dad. Matthew's voice was barely above a whisper, but it was sharp enough to cut through the room like a blade. He was standing in the living room, holding Aiden's sketch pad, open to the portrait, the one of me, sleeping, detailed, personal, too personal. "What the hell is this?" he asked again. I didn't know what to say. I just stood there, frozen, like a man caught in a spotlight, waiting for my brain to find the right words. None came. Matthew looked down at the page again, and his mouth twisted in something between confusion and disgust. This was drawn here. On that couch. You were sleeping. Matthew. He held up his hand. No, don't try to explain yet. Just tell me what's going on. There was no use denying it anymore. I'd spent weeks trying to rationalize the situation, try and convince myself we could keep it hidden, that no one would get hurt if we were careful. But nothing about this felt careful now. Everything felt exposed. I sank into the armchair across from him and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. It's complicated, I said. No, it's not. Either something is happening between you and Aiden, or this is some crazy misunderstanding. But that drawing, that doesn't lie. He was right. It didn't. I met his eyes, and I told the truth. Yes, I said. Matthew's face drained of color. Yes, what? Yes, something happened. He flinched like I'd hit him. When? I hesitated. A few weeks ago. His eyes widened. Oh my God, he whispered. I've been bringing him here. I've been sitting with you both, talking about class, my life, while you too. It wasn't like that, I said quickly. It didn't start that way. I never expected it. I didn't plan it. He dropped the sketch pad on the coffee table like it burned. Please don't do that thing where you make it sound like fate. Dad, this is Aiden, my best friend, practically family. I know. Do you? Do you even realize what you've done? I didn't answer, because I did. He paced the room, hands in his hair, muttering to himself. This is so messed up, he said. You're twice his age. You're my father. He's been sleeping down the hall since high school. Nothing happened back then, I said. I swear, it was only recently. That doesn't make it better. He turned, eyes glassy. You knew what this would do to me, to us, and you still... I didn't mean for it to happen, I said quietly, but it did. Silence stretched between us like a canyon. He looked like he was trying to hold something in, rage, sadness, maybe both, and barely succeeding. Do you love him? He asked suddenly. That question rocked me, because I hadn't asked myself that yet. Want? Yes. Feelings? Definitely. But love? Was it love? I looked down. I don't know, I said honestly, but it's not just physical. It never was. Matthew shook his head. You know what hurts the most? He said. It's not just that you betrayed my trust. It's that he did too. And you let him. He stormed out without another word. I sat there for hours afterward, just staring at the sketch pad, the outline of my face, the softness in the lines, the care, the quiet affection in the pencil strokes. It was intimate in a way that made me ache, because now it felt like a piece of evidence, like something used to hurt, not something made from love. I didn't call Aiden that night. I didn't know how. I didn't even know what I'd say. The next day, Matthew didn't come back, but Aiden did. He texted me just before noon. Aiden, we need to talk. Please. I'll be outside in 5. I opened the door before he could knock. The look on his face said he already knew. He found the sketch, didn't he? Aiden said. I nodded. His shoulders dropped. Damn. He stepped inside slowly, like he was walking into a funeral. I'm sorry, he said. I should have been more careful. I shouldn't have left it here. No, I replied. I should have told him. This was never something we could hide forever. He sank onto the couch and buried his face in his hands. God, I feel sick. I sat beside him, careful not to touch. He thinks we use him. I said, that we lied to him. Did we? Aiden asked, lifting his eyes to mine. I didn't answer, because maybe we had. Aiden turned to me. I never wanted this to blow up like this. I never wanted to hurt him. I know, but I'm not sorry for feeling the way I do. Neither was I. I finally said it. I care about you. His breath hitched. And I think, if this hadn't happened, if he hadn't found out the way he did, I think I could have fallen for you. His eyes glistened. Do you mean that? I do. He reached for my hand. And this time, I didn't pull away. Not because I was trying to be defiant, but because it was the only thing that felt real. We sat there, hand in hand, while the storm we created swirled outside us. There are no easy answers, no quick fixes, just the beginning of a very long road. And I had no idea if Matthew would ever forgive me, or if this fragile thing with Aiden could survive the damage. But as his fingers tightened around mine, I knew I had to try. To be continued in Part 5. In the next part, Aiden confronts Matthew. Tensions erupt, and I'm left to decide whether fighting for this love is worth losing my son. The knock came around 7 p.m. I was at the kitchen counter, aimlessly stirring a cup of tea I hadn't even taken a sip of. The house had been dead quiet all day. I didn't have to check the peephole. I knew it was Matthew. I opened the door slowly, unsure what version of him I'd be facing. He stood there with his hands in his hoodie pocket, eyes low, jaw clenched. The air between us was stiff, like something barely holding together. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded and stepped aside. He walked into the living room and stopped when he saw the sketch pad still on the coffee table, now closed. "You didn't even bother to move it," he said, a bitter chuckle leaving his lips. I didn't have the energy to pretend. I said honestly. He turned, arms crossed. "So, what happens now?" I didn't know. I gestured toward the couch, but he stayed standing. "Matt, I know you feel betrayed. You should. I crossed a line I never imagined I'd cross." "No, Dad. You chose to cross it," he interrupted. "You didn't trip and fall into feelings with Aiden. This didn't just happen. You let it." He was right. I'd let it. "Why him?" he asked. "Of all the people. Why, Aiden?" I didn't have an easy answer. "It wasn't planned," I said again. He was there. He saw parts of me that I didn't know were still visible. "Parts of you?" Matthew scoffed. "What does that even mean?" "It means I stopped feeling like a shell when I was with him." Matthew sat down finally, burying his face in his hands. "He was my best friend," he mumbled. "He is my best friend. I told him everything. I trusted him. He was practically family." "I know," I said quietly. "You know what that feels like? To think someone's your brother, and then find out they're kissing your father." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Just then, the door knocked again. Matthew looked up, his face tensing instantly. I froze. There was only one person it could be. I stood up and opened the door. "Aiden." He looked nervous, holding his breath. "I need to talk to both of you," he said. Matthew stood, rage barely restrained. "You've got a lot of nerve showing up here." "I didn't come to fight," Aiden said. "Too bad, because that's all I feel like doing." I stepped between them. "Aiden, maybe this isn't the right time." "No, it has to be," he said. "I can't let this sit in silence. I need to say what I need to say." He stepped inside slowly, eyes flickering from me to Matthew. "I never meant to hurt you," Aiden started. Matthew let out a dry laugh. "Well, you did, so congrats. I didn't fall for your dad because I wanted to betray you. It happened after we started spending time without you here. I didn't even know what I was feeling at first." "Oh, you know?" Matthew snapped. "That's your excuse?" Aiden didn't react. He let Matthew spit fire. Then he said something that quieted the room. I tried to stop it. I really did. But it felt like the one thing in my life that made sense. Matthew's face softened slightly, maybe because Aiden looked genuinely broken. "And you didn't think I deserved to know?" he asked. "That I could have handled the truth like a man instead of finding it in a damn sketch pad?" "I was scared," Aiden admitted, "because I knew what it would cost. I didn't want to lose you." Matthew's eyes glistened. "You already did." I stepped forward. "Matt." "No," he said, raising his hand. "Don't. I don't want comfort. Not from either of you." Aiden blinked fast. "I just needed to look you in the eye," he told Matt. "To say I'm sorry. To say I never meant to hurt you. And that whatever happens now, I'll live with it." He turned to leave. "Wait," Matthew said, voice tight. Aiden stopped. Matthew walked to the coffee table and picked up the sketch pad. He looked at it for a moment, then handed it back to Aiden. "I don't want this anymore," he said. But I won't throw it away. You made it. Keep it. Remember what it costs. Aiden nodded silently, holding the sketchbook like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Then he left. I didn't speak for a long time. Matthew stood at the window, watching the street. I wish you had just told me, he said without turning around. I didn't know how. I know, he replied. That's always been your problem. He turned finally, his expression calmer, but distant. I need space. I understand. I don't know if I'll come back here for a while. I'll be here when you're ready. He nodded, and then, just before he walked out the door, he looked back at me. I hope it's worth it. Then he was gone. I didn't see Matthew for 2 weeks. I didn't see Aiden either. The house felt colder than usual, quieter, lonelier. A few nights later, I heard a soft knock on the door again. It wasn't Matthew. It was Aiden. He didn't say anything at first. He just looked tired, worn. Then he finally spoke. I'm not giving up on us, but I'll wait as long as you need. I looked at him and said, I don't want to keep you waiting. To be continued in part 6. In the next part, a new chapter begins, but shadows from the past still linger, and we'll both be tested in ways we didn't expect. I let Aiden in without a word. The moment the door closed behind him, we both just stood there, like we were waiting for someone to scream cut on a scene that had already gone too far. But no one did. It was just us, and the weight of everything we hadn't said yet. I wasn't sure if I should come, Aiden finally said, his voice hushed, cautious. I'm glad you did. I answered. He looked relieved. Sad, but relieved. We moved to the couch like muscle memory. Same place where it had all started, where hands first touched, where silence first became language. He sat beside me, careful not to assume closeness. I hated that. I reached for his hand, and this time there was no hesitation. I keep replaying it all in my head. I said, that moment Matt held the sketch pad, the way his eyes changed, like he didn't recognize me anymore. Aiden nodded. He will again, one day. I'm not so sure. You're his father. That might be the reason he never forgives me. We were quiet for a beat. Then I looked at him, really looked at him. He was wearing a black hoodie again, sleeves pulled down over his hands. His hair was longer than before. A few curls fell over his brow. He looked different, not just physically, more grounded, like everything we'd been through had aged him slightly, or maybe it aged both of us. You said something last time. I murmured that you weren't giving up. He smiled faintly. I meant it. I swallowed. So did I. When I said, I didn't want to keep you waiting. He looked down at our hands, his thumb brushing mine. I don't need a label, he said, or a promise. I just need honesty. You'll have it. I want to be with you, but I can't be some secret locked away every time your son comes around. You won't be. You sure? I hesitated, then said what I'd been thinking for days. If we're going to do this, really do this, I won't hide it anymore. Not from him. Not from anyone. His eyes locked onto mine. You mean that? I do. He leaned in then, slowly, waiting for me to meet him halfway. And I did. Our lips touched. This kiss was different than before. It wasn't a rush of heat. It was soft, steady, reassuring. It was a kind of kiss that said, I'm here. That said, you matter. That said, let's stop running. We spent the evening on the couch, legs tangled, watching some indie movie neither of us paid attention to. We talked about everything but the past, the future, where he wanted to live after graduation, his dream of opening a small art gallery, my work, my regrets, my fears. He listened. I listened. It felt simple. It felt good. It felt earned. That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept peacefully, with Aiden's arm draped over my waist, his breast steady against my neck. But peace, I was learning, never lasted long in stories like ours. 2 days later, Matthew texted me. Matthew, can we talk? Just us. Somewhere neutral. My heart jumped. I replied, me, of course. Name the place. He chose a bench at the park near our house. The one where we used to play catch when he was a kid. It was a warm afternoon. Leaves were beginning to turn. I arrived before him and sat with my hands folded in my lap. When he walked up, his face was unreadable. "Thanks for coming," he said. "Thanks for asking." He sat beside me, keeping a good foot of space between us. We both stared out at the empty baseball field in front of us. "I've been thinking," Matthew began. "A lot." "So have I." "I don't forgive you." "Not yet." I nodded. "I get that. But I also know I don't want to lose you. And I don't want to walk around hating Aiden forever either. It's exhausting." "Matt, let me finish." I shut my mouth. I've spent the last 10 years thinking of Aiden as my second brother, as someone I could trust with anything. And now, I can't stop picturing him in my house, with my dad, lying about it. He rubbed his face. I felt betrayed. Still do. But I also know I'm not a kid anymore. And people fall in love where they don't expect to. You didn't go looking for this. Neither did he. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until he looked at me again. "I'm not saying I'm okay with it," he said, "but I'm trying to understand. And I'm not going to make you choose between him and me." Relief hit me like a wave. "I'm sorry," I said. He nodded. "I know. I love you, Matt. That will never change." "I know that too." Then in a softer voice he asked, "Do you love him?" I exhaled. "I think I do." "Yeah." He nodded slowly. "Well then, maybe I'll try to stop hating him." We both chuckled, softly. It wasn't fixed, but it was a start. That night, I told Aiden everything. He was sitting at my dining table, sketching again, this time, a plan in the window. "He said that?" he asked, eyes wide. I nodded. "Don't expect hugs just yet, but he's trying." Aiden leaned back, relief blooming across his face. "That's more than I hoped for." I smiled. Then I pulled a chair closer and reached for his hand. I meant what I said. No more secrets. If we're going to do this, we do it out in the open. He grinned, eyes dancing. "Does that mean I can post this?" he asked, holding up his sketch. It was a quick line drawing of the two of us. Me sitting at the table, coffee mug in hand, him leaning against the wall. It wasn't polished, but it was us. And for the first time, I didn't flinch at the idea of being seen. I nodded. "Post it. To be continued in part 7. In the next part, public reaction sparked rumors, and a surprise confrontation from someone unexpected brings our fragile piece to the edge." Aiden posted the sketch the next morning. Just a quiet image. No caption. No tag. Just lines and shading. Me with a coffee cup, a soft smile on my face. Him in the background, watching with a subtle tilt of the head. It was us, but only if you knew what to look for. Most people wouldn't notice, but some did. By noon, the comments started. "Is that your professor?" "Wait, is that the same guy from the gallery sketch last fall?" "Aiden, this looks intimate." "Eyes. The tension in this art is crazy." Spill. And then, "Dude, that looks like Matt's dad." The text came from Matthew a few hours later. "Matthew, so much for keeping it low-key, huh?" My heart sank. I called him immediately. He picked up after a few rings. "Hey," I said, "I didn't know he was going to post it." "I swear." "I'm not mad," Matthew replied, surprisingly calm. "It's just weird. People from class are demanding me now, asking questions." "I'm sorry." "It's fine. Just brace yourself. Word's gonna get around." He was right. By that evening, I had 3 emails from parents of students I taught in my adjunct lecture series. Polite but pointed, just wondering if there's any truth to the rumors. "You've always been professional, but this makes things complicated. We hope this won't impact the college's reputation." I kept my work life separate from my personal life for years. But love in the shadows was easy. Love in the light? That was another story. I told Aiden we needed to talk. We met at a bookstore cafe downtown, one of those quiet places with hanging plants and jazz music humming in the background. He showed up in a green coat and jeans, cheeks flushed from the cold. "I messed up, didn't I?" he asked, sliding into the seat across from me. "No," I said. "You didn't. But we need to be more careful now." He looked down. I wanted the world to see us, even if they didn't know what they were seeing. I get it, I said gently, but not everyone sees with kind eyes. He reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. I'm not ashamed, he whispered. Neither am I replied. But we've got to be smart. He nodded, then said something that surprised me. My mom knows. I blinked. Wait, what? I told her last night. I figured if the rest of the world's going to guess, I wanted the one person who raised you to hear from me. And she said she already knew. That made me smile. She said, I didn't raise you to hide who you are. But are you sure he's not just your first heartbreak? I raised an eyebrow. And you said? I said if he breaks my heart, at least I'll know it was real. That night, for the first time, Aiden didn't go home. We didn't talk about it. He just stayed, brushed his teeth in the same bathroom, took off his hoodie like it belonged on my chair, crawled into bed beside me like it was routine. It wasn't about passion. It was about presence. And that meant more. The next morning, I found a folded note on the nightstand. Aiden had already left for an early class. It read, I don't care how long this road is. I don't care who stares. As long as you're at the other end of it, I'll keep walking. I stared at those words for a long time. Then I tucked the note into my wallet like a secret prayer. But peace has a short shelf life, and ours was about to expire. Later that week, I was walking to the parking lot near campus when I heard someone call my name. I turned, and my stomach dropped. It was Troy, my ex-wife's brother, Matthew's uncle, the same man who used to joke about turning boys into men and kept beer in his truck just in case. He walked toward me with that same smug confidence I remembered from holidays I used to fake smiles through. Long time, he said, arms crossed. Heard some interesting things lately. Hi, Troy, I said, keeping my tone neutral. You seeing someone? He asked, eyebrows raised. Someone young. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He smirked. I always knew there was something off about you, he said. Now it makes sense. You and your son's little buddy. Real classy. I took a step closer. Be careful what you say next, I warned. He leaned in. You're an embarrassment to that boy. To yourself. If his mom was still around, she'd be disgusted. And just like that, I snapped. You don't get to talk about her, I said, jaw tight. She was my sister. She was my wife. And she never would have stood for your poison. You think being loud makes you brave? It doesn't. It just makes you small. His expression faltered for a second. You know what I think? I added, I think your whole life is so empty, you need someone else's to tear down just to feel taller. He didn't respond, just turned and walked off. I got in my car and sat there, shaking, not from fear, from fury, from shame, not at who I loved, but at the world still trying to tell me it was wrong. That night, I told Aiden everything. He didn't say much, just pulled me into a hug and whispered, You don't have to fight alone. But something had shifted in me. Some part of me that used to second guess, that used to shrink. That part was gone. Burned away. I wasn't hiding anymore. Not from judgment. Not from family. Not even from the ghosts of my past. If this love was going to last, it had to stand in the open, with scars, with shadows, with everything. To be continued in part 8. In the next part, an unexpected person reaches out with an apology, and the bond between Aiden and me deepens until a secret from his past threatens it all. It had been 3 days since Troy's confrontation in the parking lot, and somehow that single conversation stuck to my ribs like something unchewed and bitter. Aiden noticed a shift in me. He always did. He didn't push. He simply stayed close, made tea, cleaned dishes, touched my shoulder when he passed behind me. The kind of presence you never knew you needed until it's there and feels like home. One night, after we'd eaten dinner in our quiet kitchen, Aiden sat on the edge of the counter, swinging his legs like a kid. Can I ask you something? He said. Of course. Would you still have wanted this if I wasn't who I am? If I hadn't made the first move? If I wasn't me? I paused. He looked vulnerable, not something he often showed. His usual calm confidence was replaced by something rawer, smaller. You want the truth? I asked. He nodded. I think I spent years not knowing what I needed, not knowing I'd shut down something myself after my wife died. You showed me that part of me wasn't dead. You didn't make it happen. You just made me brave enough to stop pretending. His eyes softened. I was afraid I filled a space that was just empty. You didn't fill an empty space, I said. You built something new. The next morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but I did, and the voice on the other end stopped my heart. It's Matthew. I stood up instantly, walking to the other room as Aiden watched, confused. Hey, I said. What's up? His tone was cautious, but calmer than I'd expected. I've been thinking, he said. I want to meet. Just us. One more time. My throat went dry. Yeah, of course. You name it. There's a spot behind the lake trail where we used to fish. I'll be there in an hour. When I arrived, he was already sitting on one of the large flat rocks by the shore. He didn't turn when he heard me, just tossed a pebble into the water. I thought I'd hate you forever, he said. I didn't reply. Then I remembered, Mom was the last person you really opened up to. You love her deeply. And after she died, you just stopped. He turned to face me, and I realized Aiden didn't replace her, but he brought you back. And part of me can't hate that. I sat beside him. You have no idea how much that means. I'm not saying I understand it all, or that it doesn't still make me sick sometimes to imagine it. I winced. But I'm trying, he said, because you're still my dad, and he's still my friend. And if you both are going to be in my life, I want it to be on my terms, not on secrets. I reached out. He let me place a hand on his shoulder. Then something unexpected happened. He smiled. Just barely. But it was real. You're not as subtle as you think you are, by the way. He draws you like he's memorizing you. I laughed, surprised. He probably is. Matthew stood. I don't want to know everything, but I want to be part of your life again. You always were, even when I didn't know how to show it. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in months. Aiden was in the kitchen when I walked in, music playing softly from a speaker, the same jazz playlist he always put on when he painted. I walked up behind him and wrapped my arms around his waist. He turned, startled, and then melted into me. Matt and I talked. I whispered. He looked up at me, searching. And I think we're going to be okay. A smile bloomed across his face, the kind that reaches the eyes and softens every muscle. I'm so glad. We kissed. Slow. Steady. Home. That night, I watched Aiden sketch again. This time, he wasn't sketching me. He was sketching us. Two silhouettes on a park bench, side by side. There was no obvious affection in the image. No hand holding. No kiss. Just presence. That was his gift. He captured what existed between moments. But just as peace started to feel natural, something else arrived to shatter it. The next day, I received an email. Subject, regarding Aiden Moore. It was from someone I didn't recognize. A professor from a nearby university. Apparently, Aiden had submitted a piece for an art competition. It had won and would be displayed publicly at a national gallery tour. Great news until I read the description of the piece. A series capturing the complex relationship between truth, taboo, and desire, inspired by a forbidden love with someone twice his age. My heart sank. He hadn't named me, but people would know. People already suspected. Now they'd be sure. I showed the email to Aiden that evening. He sat in silence after reading it. I didn't think they'd use that description, he said. It was in my draft statement, but I didn't think they'd print it. You didn't think to warn me? I asked, keeping my voice calm. I didn't know it would go that far. You submitted a national piece, Aiden. What did you expect? I didn't want to hide anymore. The room went quiet. Not angry quiet, but fragile quiet. I need to be careful, I said. I have a job, a life I built. And I don't. Aiden said defensively, I built this too, with you. Around you. I'm not ashamed of us, but I'm scared of what it costs. I'm scared too, but I don't want to live like we're wrong. He turned away, his voice lower. I spent so much of my life wondering if I'd ever be seen, and now that I am, I'm not going back. I wanted to say I understood, but truthfully, part of me didn't. Because for Aiden, freedom came with youth, with boldness. For me, it came with risk. We didn't fight, but we didn't touch that night either. Just sat in the same room, the air between us colder than it had been in weeks. That night, I couldn't sleep. I replayed everything in my head. The first moment he touched my hand, the night he locked the door, the morning he sketched me sleeping. And now, the spotlight we never asked for, but stepped into anyway. And somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., I whispered aloud, what if we built something beautiful just to watch it break? To be continued in part 9. In the next part, a public exhibition reopens old wounds, and I face a decision that may cost me both love and stability. The exhibition was held in a sleek art space in Chicago, one of those white-wall galleries where everything feels too clean to touch. Aiden had been invited to attend the opening night, and he wanted me there. But after reading the description in the catalog, I wasn't so sure anymore. Still, I went, not for the gallery, not for the praise, but for him, because I couldn't ask him to hide when I promised him the opposite. Aiden met me outside the venue. He looked incredible. Simple black shirt, rolled sleeves, nervous energy vibrating through his fingers. The city lights bounced off his cheekbones like soft spotlights. Ready, he asked. I wasn't, but I nodded anyway. Inside, the crowd buzzed with polite conversation, the kind that's too rehearsed to feel real. Glasses clinked, shoes clicked against the tile. People stood in clusters, eyeing canvases and framed pieces with tilted heads and soft gasps. Then we saw it, Aiden's section, the centerpiece, a large grayscale canvas. 2 male figures on opposite sides of the bed, one older, bare-chested, seated, back hunched slightly, the other, slender, shirtless, standing with a hand resting on a doorknob. The room in the painting was dimly lit, moonlight casting long shadows across their bodies. It was raw, intimate, unmistakable. I froze. People nearby glanced at the piece and leaned into each other to whisper. I heard phrases like, "There's a story here." You can feel the tension. Is that a father figure? I turned to Aiden. You didn't tell me it was this revealing. He looked pained. I didn't want to scare you off. People will know, Aiden. I don't care if they do. I do. He touched my arm. We can leave. Now. Say the word. But I didn't say it, because part of me, even in all that discomfort, was proud of what he'd made, because it was honest, because it came from us. Then a familiar voice cut through the buzz. Well, I'll be damned. I turned. It was Karen, my late wife's sister. Matthew's aunt. She hadn't aged much. Same sharp haircut. Same narrowed eyes that always looked like they were searching for something to disapprove of. I heard about this, but I didn't believe it until now, she said, arms crossed. Karen, I said, trying to stay neutral. Her eyes flicked to Aiden. I remember you. You used to come over after soccer practice. You were what, 16? Aiden shifted uncomfortably. Karen turned back to me. This is disgusting. Keep your voice down, I said calmly. You think I care about making a scene? This is art to you? This is love. Karen, I said more firmly, you can leave. You don't deserve to say her name, she hissed. If she were alive. She's not. My voice cracked. Silence fell around us. Karen blinked. Don't you dare use her memory to justify your hate, I said. She loved you, but she wouldn't stand with you on this. She believed in truth, in kindness. Karen opened her mouth, then closed it, without another word. She turned and walked away. Aiden reached for my hand. I let him take it, not because I was defiant, but because I needed a reminder that love, no matter how messy, was still love. We didn't stay long after that. Too many stares. Too many eyes trying to put us in a frame we'd already outgrown. That night, Aiden and I sat on the apartment balcony, wrapped in blankets, the city twinkling below. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I didn't mean for it to explode like that." I shook my head. It was going to happen eventually. I just wanted them to see us. They did. He pulled out his phone and opened his messages. Dozens. People from school, old friends, even strangers. Some supportive, some confused, some cruel. I always knew he was into older men. Bold of him to flaunt that. Honestly beautiful. Wait, is this real? Gross. Just gross. I scrolled for a while, then handed the phone back. "This is what it means," I said, "to live in truth." "Do you regret it?" he asked. I thought for a moment. No, even if it costs you everything. I already lost a lot before you came. I've only gained since then. Aiden leaned his head on my shoulder. "I love you," he whispered. I closed my eyes. "I love you too." It should have felt peaceful. But deep down, I knew something still loomed. A fear I hadn't named yet. A few days later, it finally showed up right at my front door. An official-looking envelope from the Board of Education. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, a formal notice. Due to recent public exposure of a relationship between an instructor and a former student, an internal review will be conducted to determine if any policies were violated. It wasn't just a warning. It was the beginning of something bigger and scarier. I sat down, the letter trembling in my hands. I'd worked at the university for over a decade. I'd never broken a rule, never crossed a line. But now, they were drawing one after I'd stepped over it. When Aiden came home later, I didn't even speak. I just handed him the letter. His face went pale as he read it. "Oh my God! They're launching a review. But I'm not your student. Not anymore. That won't matter." He sat beside me, the letter still clutched in his hand. "This is my fault." "No," I said firmly. "It's not. They wouldn't care if it wasn't you and me. If it wasn't like this." I nodded. We didn't talk much the rest of the night. Just held each other. Longer. Tighter. As if we knew something was about to slip through our fingers. To be continued in part 10. In the next part, I faced a board that might end my career, and Aiden is forced to decide if staying with me is worth the price of everything he's worked for. The review was scheduled for Tuesday morning. I'd barely slept the night before. The university had phrased it as an informal meeting to assess the situation, but I knew what it really was. A trial without a courtroom. Guilt would be implied. Doubt would be planted. And my years of quiet, respectable service wouldn't mean much once words like inappropriate and ethics entered the room. Aiden sat across from me at breakfast, untouched cereal going soggy in his bowl. "I don't have to go to the opening in New York," he said. "I can stay. Be here for the review." "No," I said gently. "You've worked too hard for this gallery show. You need to go. But you being there tells the world you're not ashamed of what we built. That matters more right now than sitting in a cold office while they dissect my life." He looked torn, guilty. But I knew if he stayed, he'd only blame himself more. When I walked into the boardroom that morning, it felt like entering a storm. There were 5 of them, the dean, 2 faculty board members, and 2 compliance officers, all dressed like they were about to deliver bad news. Maybe they were. The lead officer, a woman named Lillian Marks, offered a rehearsed smile. "Mr. Harris," she said, motioning to a seat. "Thanks for coming in." I nodded, palms sweating despite the cold conference room air. They started with questions. When did your personal relationship with Mr. Moore begin? Was he still enrolled in your courses at the time? Were there any private meetings during his time as a student? Do you understand the optics of this situation? Are you aware of our guidelines on educator conduct and relational boundaries? I answered calmly, truthfully, told them Aiden was never my student directly, that we grew close outside of class, after the semester, that nothing romantic happened until long after, that I loved him, but had never used my position to influence or protect him. Still, I saw it in their eyes. They weren't looking for facts. They were looking for fault. The dean folded his hands. Even if no policies were technically violated, the relationship may create discomfort within the campus community. particularly among students who now question the impartiality and intentions of faculty. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I replied, then maybe the discomfort lies more with their assumptions than with my conduct. There was silence, no agreement, just the sound of pens tapping and someone scribbling notes. They said they'd get back to me by the end of the week, that I should prepare for the possibility of administrative leave, that further public discussion of the situation could complicate matters. I nodded, left, and once I was outside, I stood by the flagpole on campus and stared at the ground, numb. This place, this career I had dedicated so much of my life to, it was slipping, not because I'd done something wrong, but because I'd finally allowed myself to feel something right. When I got home, the apartment was too quiet. I found Aiden's sketchbook open on the kitchen table. A new drawing. Us again. This time, both of us facing forward, eyes closed, wind in our hair. It looked like freedom, or defiance, or both. That night, I called him. He was in New York, just finished helping with final touches at the gallery. His voice lit up when he answered. Hey, he said, how did it go? I hesitated. It was what I expected. He was silent. They're reviewing everything. I could be suspended. Maybe worse. I'm sorry, he said quietly. It's not your fault. Still feels like it is. I sighed. I told him the truth. That I love you. That nothing happened when it wasn't supposed to. But it may not matter. There was a pause. Then Aiden said, if they take your job, will you still want to be with me? I blinked. The question hurt, but not because I didn't have the answer, because he felt he needed to ask. Aiden, I said softly, I don't care what I lose as long as I don't lose you. He didn't respond for a moment. Then I heard his breath hitch. I love you, he whispered. I know this isn't fair. I know you never asked for any of this. Neither did you. The next day, I received an email from Matthew. Subject, you okay? Message, heard about the review. If they fire you, I swear I'm going to show up at that office with a damn protest sign. I laughed, actually laughed, then typed back. Me, I'm hanging in. Thanks for checking in. Matthew, you still seeing him? Me, yes. Matthew, good. I was hoping you wouldn't let them scare you out of it. I never expected that, but I held on to it like an anchor. Later that night, I received a message from a former student named Peter, someone I'd helped years ago during a difficult coming-out process. He graduated, moved to California, and we hadn't spoken since. His message read, just saw the news. I don't know what's true or what's twisted, but if you ever feel like you're drowning in this, remember what you told me once. The truth is heavy, but it frees your hands. You helped me find mine. I hope you keep yours. I cried, not loud, not messy, just quiet tears on a pillow, with the knowledge that maybe, somehow, this wasn't all for nothing. The week dragged on. Aiden sent pictures from the gallery, photos of his art with strangers standing in front of it, smiling, crying, asking questions. He said someone came up to him and whispered, I think your painting made me realize I've been lying to myself for years. Then came the letter, an official envelope in my mailbox. I stood in the doorway and stared at it for 5 full minutes before I opened it. Decision. No disciplinary action will be taken. Recommendation. Continued adherence to professional boundaries. Status. Cleared. My legs gave out. I sat on the floor and laughed again because I hadn't realized how tightly I'd been holding my breath until then. I called Aiden. He picked up immediately. Cleared. I said. His gasp turned into a shout. You're kidding? Nope. I'm still employed. Still standing. Damn. I knew they'd see it. Part of me didn't. But I'm glad one of us believed. That night, Aiden returned from New York. We didn't go out to celebrate. We stayed in, ordered takeout, and watched a terrible sci-fi movie while curled up on the couch like we'd never left. It was perfect. I looked at him in the soft glow of the TV light and said, Thank you. For what? For not letting me run. He kissed me on the forehead and whispered, I wouldn't have let you. To be continued in part 11 final. In the final part, Matthew makes a heartfelt decision. Aiden unveils one last surprise, and I finally understand that some kinds of love are worth every storm they cause. The first real weekend of spring arrived like a long sigh of relief. Soft sunlight, bird song through cracked windows, and for once stillness. After everything, Troy's rage, Karen's disgust, the university board, the gallery show, I expected to feel fragile. Instead, I felt strong. Maybe not because we'd won anything, but because we'd survived everything. Aiden was in the kitchen that morning, cooking French toast with one headphone in, humming something jazzy. He looked peaceful, like all the storms in his head had finally quieted. When he noticed me watching him from the doorway, he grinned. "I made the cinnamon extra illegal today," he said, holding up the sugar canister. I laughed. "You trying to seduce me with breakfast?" "That depends. Is it working?" It was. Everything he did worked. After breakfast, he handed me an envelope, handwritten, no stamp. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it." Inside, a folded sheet of sketch paper. Not a drawing this time. A map, our apartment in the center, with messy arrows leading to key moments drawn around it. The first night he stayed over. The park where we first kissed. The library where he used to pretend to run into me. The lake Matthew and I sat at when he forgave me. And at the bottom, in bold ink, "No matter where this road goes, I want you to walk it with me." I looked up, throat tight. Aiden took something from his pocket, a simple silver ring. No diamonds, no velvet box, just sincerity in metal. "I know it's not traditional," he said. "I'm not asking for a wedding. Not now. But I am asking, will you stay mine officially?" I stared at the ring, then at him, then back at the map. "Do you remember the night you locked the door?" I asked softly. He blushed. "Yeah, I never told you, but that was the first night I felt safe in years." He looked at me, his usual calm now replaced with something vulnerable. "I don't want to lock anything between us anymore," I said. "I want everything open. Always." Then I held out my hand. He slid the ring on. We didn't cry. We smiled. Because this wasn't an ending. It was a next step. Later that week, we invited Matthew to dinner. We didn't know how he'd react to the ring, or to us being more open about it. But he showed up on time, bottle of wine in one hand, a plastic bag of takeout in the other. "Hope Ty's okay," he said, walking in like he belonged. "It's perfect," I replied. Over dinner, the conversation drifted. From campus gossip to Aiden's gallery tour to Matthew's new side project managing events at a local art venue. Then, when we finished eating, he leaned back and said, "So, you guys are like engaged?" Aiden blinked. "Not legally, just committed." Matthew nodded. "Cool." He didn't flinch, didn't grimace, just sipped his drink and added, "Honestly, if someone told me 2 years ago that my dad would end up with my best friend and I'd be okay with it, I'd have thrown a chair." Aiden laughed. "Your aim would have been terrible." Then Matthew added, more serious, "But you know what? I've seen a lot of messed up relationships. Friends whose parents stayed married out of convenience. People who cheat just to feel something again." He looked between us. "You too? You didn't take the easy road, but you took the real one." I felt something catch in my chest. Pride, not in us, in him. When he left that night, he hugged Aiden without hesitation. And when he hugged me, he said, "Don't screw this up, old man." "I'll try not to." Weeks passed. The spotlight faded. The gossip cooled. And for the first time in a long time, life felt normal, but not boring, just steady. I'd walk into the kitchen and find Aiden humming while sketching on napkins. He'd walk into my office and steal my hoodie before his classes. I'd leave notes in his pockets. He'd leave doodles on the bathroom mirror. We weren't perfect, but we were ours. One Sunday morning, I woke up to an empty bed. I panicked briefly, then heard music from a balcony. I stepped outside. Aiden stood there, shirtless in the rising sun, painting on a large canvas propped against the railing. He turned when he felt me. "Morning," he said. "Couldn't sleep?" I walked over, looked at the painting. It wasn't us. It was him, alone, staring at a door. But the door was open, and light poured in. What's it called? I asked. When I was finally let in, he said, I looked at the strokes, at the warmth and the light, the steadiness in the figure, the peace. And I realized this wasn't just his story. It was mine, too, because maybe the door had always been there. Maybe I just needed someone brave enough to walk through it.